Hi, our guest today is the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen in Milford, William Kingkade. Will, welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen, for having me back.
And we're here today to talk about the purchase of the Milford Water Company.
Yes.
Over the summer, you guys have had some firms doing due diligence into all the numbers, the purchase price, et cetera. And at a Selectmen's meeting you held on September 6th, you guys got the final numbers on learning that you're going to have a rate hike if the town buys the company. And you're having a public meeting on Monday the 11th to air what that is. Can you talk about what caused this?
Sure.
'Cause back in June, you said you could get by with no rate hike and just, inflationary costs every year. And
Yep, and that's what was presented to us from the time I got on the board and through that time. And then we had a one public meeting already where we shared with everything that we had up until that point.
Right.
But we did make a commitment that as new information came in, we'd continue to have public forums prior to a town meeting vote, just so we could educate people
And you got new
as much as
info.
we could. And yeah, I mean, with the months of meetings and everything, mostly obviously in executive session, because negotiating of a contract, the board and really Bill Buckley first and foremost came out with, I want additional due diligence, additional due diligence. I've never heard that expression so much until over the last couple of years dealing with the water company negotiations.
right, so you hired the Lincoln Group.
Yep, that was at our finance director's recommendation. He found this group, and they've been very impressive. We wanted them to dig into every part of the water company financials that they could, because not only are we potentially spending a boatload of money of $63 million, but also what are we buying? What are we purchasing? What is the condition of what we're getting to the best of our ability to find out? And we really didn't know,
assets and all the things.
exactly
Right,
what
but-
we were
but-
going to
but
find out.
you actually gave me a quote in August that said, we know the Milford Water Company better than the Milford Water Company knows the Milford Water Company.
Yep, and I believe that. And that's why I think it's so important to start sharing with the town and the meeting on the 11th and everything.
Now, I understand there were two things. One was there was an initial assumption that two $7 million borrowings in the future for capital could have been bonded, and the Lincoln Group said, no, not while you're paying off the $63 million, you can't. So that was one reason for a rate hike.
Yeah, and I'm not even really sure it was and I say that just because we've had so many meetings, but I don't know if it was necessarily that we couldn't, but you can't take a revenue bond out, which that would be, because obviously
Right.
a revenue bond, you're judged differently because you have ratepayers actually paying the bond. So
Right.
the collateral is already there. Then to do capital expenditures,
On
to
top of
bond
that.
separately, they would almost be additional bonding offset from the revenue bond,
Right.
which again, we're paying for Woodland School, we're paying for a number of other things.
It would
that-
have to be borrowed by the town, not by the enterprise.
Right.
Exactly,
The
and
enterprise
that's at
account
least,
couldn't do it.
Okay.
a serious option. And again, that wasn't something that that the board and the town and our financial team was comfortable with if there was another option. Now, at that point, that it could have been, hey, well, we're going to stop the negotiations right now.
Okay.
And that's where we can get into maybe some of the
Right,
philosophical.
so that was one factor in the town needing a rate increase. And the other one was the fact that there is more capital work than you figured,
Yes.
because,
Since the boil water order from the DEP back in 2009, the Milford Water Company
laid out a rather aggressive plan to do things,
for capital expenditures.
and let's be candid, they didn't do it all.
Exactly. So if
Yet.
that plan, going back to 2010, for the next 10 years, they were supposed to spend 20 plus million. It looks as if they may have spent $2.
So they were going to catch up in the last 2 years.
Yeah. So.
Well, no, what
again,
happened is you guys initiated the let's buy them talk, so they stopped doing it. Candidly, that's probably what happened.
That's probably what happened.
It could have been. I certainly don't know
Right.
that. But I know that we need, if we're going to take over the Milford Water Company, if the town decides that they want to purchase the water company, they need to know every aspect of what they're buying. They're going to need to know that we'll have to raise rates by X so that we can get this stuff done because
And oddly enough, though, the rate increase you're talking about is in the same ballpark as what the company itself is looking for if you don't buy them.
potentially, yes. Yeah.
So either way, the people are going to get the rate increase, whether you buy it or not. They're
Yes.
going to get a rate increase between 20 and 30%.
Whoever the owner is.
Yes.
Whoever the owner is.
Whether it stays the Milford Water Company, the town does it, or they sell it to a third
somebody
party.
else. The rate.
No,
the
they'll
rate-
get a bigger rate increase in that
Well,
case.
that may be case.
No, because if I walked in the door tomorrow as Kevin Rudden Water Company, and I paid $63 million for the water company, I have the right to go to the Department of Public Utilities and say, I need to raise the rates because I just borrowed $63 million to buy them, and the rate increase could be 100%, 200% to cover that purchase price.
Right, right.
Exactly. I mean, the crux of it is the ratepayers pay for everything,
Yes,
regardless of ownership.
correct.
They pay for the water, they pay for
Okay.
the
Well,
capital.
that's-
But it's,
everything.
Channel 25 recently did a segment about the guy who was on Facebook talking about his glass of water that looked like it was iced tea.
Yes.
If the town buys the water company, there is now an elected board
Right.
Yes.
of water, well, appointed at first, then to be elected board of water commissioners
Right.
that they have recourse to.
Yes.
Where right now you go to the privately owned water company and they say, gee, nobody else in town's having that problem but you.
Yeah, right. That's exactly the case. Now, just out of curiosity, is the town, there's an enterprise fund that has to be established.
Yes.
Now, is the town going to start a fund, are they going to fund that with some money? Are they going to?
Yes.
Okay, so there's going to be a certain amount of money that's thrown in the enterprise account to get
Exactly.
it started. Okay.
Yes. No, great question. I appreciate that, Al, because I think I would have failed to mention that, but that's a key ingredient in this to get started. And I think what it's going to come down to, even with these public meetings and eventually at town meeting, is there's a couple of things that I think the Board of Selectmen presenting to town meeting, and then town meeting is going to be responsible for, obviously, to the town as a whole. And that is that our commitment would be to improve a couple of things. You're going to get a rate hike regardless. It's nothing to be flip about. We need to talk about it. We need to debate it. We need
So
to have a full
everybody
dialogue.
understands. These
But
are
it's
the-
Right.
literally that simple of a concept.
In all three options.
Doesn't
which
matter
is-
who has it.
Doesn't matter who
rated-
has
Doesn't matter who
rated
owns it.
Right.
You can
What
get
we
one.
can do, and Kevin, you were, I think, going in that direction with the elected board of holding people accountable and holding the Board of Selectmen accountable.
Is have
that,
accountability.
having accountability, and I would commit to two things. One, we will improve the quality of the water.
Right.
Two, we will improve the customer service. Because those are two things we have the control over.
If you buy it.
If we buy
If
it.
the town buys it.
Right now, I've been amazed. Now, I'm in my third year, and final year of my first term, and I've probably gotten a dozen calls, which isn't a lot over the last 2.5 years, about water company related issues. And I've called over there, and luckily I have a couple folks that work over there that are classmates of mine, people I grew up with, folks that I knew through my parents, and I call and they're great. They've helped me out. They've answered the questions. They've gone back to Mrs. So-and-so's house who didn't feel comfortable letting someone in the house
Right,
when she was
right.
by herself. I met them over there.
Everything got squared
they
away.
came in, got it squared away. Nothing difficult, but just customer service related issues.
But it shouldn't take a selectman for that to happen.
It shouldn't. And also there's been some complaints. Again, I'm only hearing one side of it, but multiple people have called and said, hey, when I call over there, I have questions. It's not the same reception as a public entity.
Right.
Because if someone at town hall spoke to some customers a certain way, I would have a real problem with that.
You'd be
and there
able
would
to-
be some accountability.
You would have the ability to resolve the issue
Absolutely.
in a manner that made it consistent in the future.
Exactly. Very well said. I like that.
Well, for instance, what I usually see, I read the Milford Facebook page a lot. What I see is like a bunch of people on a certain street saying, hey, our water's brown today. Does anyone know why? and somebody that lives the other side of town says, well, I saw them digging up the road on your street today. At the very least, if the town owned the water company, you could use the reverse 911 to call everybody living in that road and say,
Of course.
you may experience brown water today, there's a water main break on your street,
By the
we're
way, I
fixing
would
it."
let the private water company, and I'm sure everyone would, allow them to do it. They're still a public entity to us. They're privately owned,
But
but
a
people
public-
think
right.
of their water.
That's right.
Correct.
And you know what? There's still a public utility to a lesser extent that
Right,
you know
but I mean, in terms
we
of-
do have to work together.
In terms of customer service, though, there could be tighter,
It's accountability. It's a
that's
simple.
the word I'm
it's
looking
a
for.
simple thing as accountability, and that's now the voter, the person who has use of the water, knows the accountability, and that accountability goes to an elected official.
Yes.
there's
Period.
those
There's no-
those three guys. If no one else answers, those three people
Right. And if
Exactly.
on the
So-
water commission,
So what happens is, no, the accountability not only the water commission, but goes to the selectmen also. So what happens is, the responsibility is local. So someone can go and get an answer, and if this guy doesn't answer it, then they go to you.
well,
Yes.
what I always tell people is when you're in Shaw's buying your groceries with your wife, and somebody walks up to you with a problem, you're accountable.
Yes.
Right.
Because you don't want to be bothered in Shaw's grocery, and really you want to call up the person responsible and say,
You didn't do this right. Fix it.
No, and even, and again, it's another, because in Milford, we have a lot of fiefdoms, we still, even though we're a big town, we still have,
Yes.
this board, we have the parks, we have the cemetery, we have the
But
sewer commission.
what
we
I
have
know
the
right
water
now,
commission.
though, is if somebody has a sewer problem, and they call the members of the sewer board, I can't speak for one of them, but I know there's at least two of them will go to the house.
Yeah, well,
and
I
find out
think
what's going on.
that entire board is unbelievable, in a good way, in an impressive way.
Yeah, by the way,
And
they
again,
just did the 9th fiscal year in a row without a rate hike.
Absolutely, and I think that's why we compare a lot, that the Board of Water Commissioners, if the town does move forward with it, I mean, we have a very good model at the sewer department.
Right,
And you're right, I'm glad you gave them accolades, because they are very hands-on. And I think,
three of
and
them
I
are
think a lot
hands-on.
of that, dissipates a lot along the way,
It's
but
a case of ownership. They believe
They absolutely
they
do.
have ownership of not only the service, but the problems. And that's the hardest thing to get, right now, the ownership of the
Well,
problem.
it's you elected me.
And my
for me
responsibility is
to
right.
come down when your sump pump is backing up, or your toilet's backing up, or the manhole in front of your road is spewing human waste.
Yep.
They believe they were elected to go out and personally check on it.
Make
Well,
sure it
that's why
works.
when I mentioned the fiefdoms,
Yes.
it's also, and it's been my experience over the last 3 years, that I know I don't have ownership and responsibility over the parks or over the cemeteries or over the sewer commissioner or the Board of Health or anything like that. But as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I call a park commissioner. I've never been disappointed.
No,
I
no,
call a
no,
Board of Sewer Commissioners. I've never been disappointed. I mean, two of the guys I feel bad for. I mean, I literally drive by Tommy and Rudy's house every day to go home. So when
Well,
we
you
have
have
something to
two-
talk about, I just pull
Well,
over.
you have two of the members live next to each other.
Exactly. But that's the part of how this all
Well,
works.
that's why town government, a town government works well, is when people have that
Right, I mean,
dialogue.
I have
Yep.
no problem amending, picking up the phone and calling a select person.
Yep.
And saying, hey,
What's the deal?
what's going on here?
No. And again, this is where I think when people they hold seats for a long time, they get comfortable, and some maybe lose their enthusiasm. But if you don't want the phone calls, you don't want to get stopped at Shaw's, you don't want to be,
Then
you
don't run
want
for
someone
office.
that interrupts you and your wife when you're at dinner because there's something important to them, then
Then
you
don't.
shouldn't run for public office.
Right, that's exactly the case. Once you're elected, your responsibility, the voters have elected you
Yep.
to represent them.
Okay, but
So,
let's circle back, though. On Monday, the 11th, you guys have a public forum scheduled.
Yes.
By you guys, I mean the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
You're probably going to have one or two individuals stand up and say, oh, you're telling us this now, why didn't you tell us this in June? And the answer is, you just found out.
There's no question. And we
Okay.
made a commitment. That's the one thing I can say about Bill, Mike, and myself. The three of us unanimously over and over again at all of these meetings, and then you just have to take my word for it at all these executive sessions that we've had over the last year. We have made, and Brian before Mike got on,
Yes.
have made a commitment that as we get information and it's verified, we are going to notify
Okay.
Public.
the
So
public.
in addition to the meeting on September 11th.
Except when you beat us to
yes.
the story, but.
Well, in addition to the meeting on September 11th.
That's why he gets paid.
You pay me? In addition to the meeting on September
We can
11th,
fix
though,
that, too.
before the September 26th special town meeting, you're going to try to have another public meeting?
If possible, I would like to. If there's no more additional information and we get it all covered between the meeting on the 6th and then in preparation and
This
then
is a tight
then
timeframe.
the
I
11th,
mean,
it is a tight
you're
timeframe.
asking from the 11th to have the Finance Committee, I know they've been privy to the details
Yes.
all along as well, but you're asking them to take a recommendation vote, and then you're asking basically the town meeting members, about 3 weeks after your September 11th meeting, to vote on probably the most major purchase the town has ever made.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's a
And
significant purchase.
It is a significant purchase, and it was such a catch-22 because we could have given everyone more time with inaccurate, and that's strongly said,
Right.
inaccurate or at least very short of a lot of important information.
But your finance team also needs to have that town meeting vote, because they need October, November, and December to do the bond issue.
Right.
Yes. Oh, no, we are all, from now until the end of December, if the town votes to make this purchase,
Right.
then we have another set of hurdles. Not financial, in the sense that we have to
Don't
still
tell Chris
negotiate
Pillay
prices
and
and
Zach
stuff like
Taylor
that.
that.
But financial internally, in the sense that we have to go
Right.
bonds.
Well,
And
Chris
we
Pillay and
can't,
Zach
we
Taylor
can't
will
hurry
be-
the process.
No, the bonds take.
The bonds take-
whatever the bonds
Yep.
take.
Zach Taylor, your finance director, and Chris Pillay, your treasurer,
Yep,
will be going nonstop in October and November to make that bond issue happen.
no question. Nope, that's their,
And
that will
close the
be
deal
their,
by
that
December
will be their
31st.
job for probably
the-
60 some odd days.
Okay, so let's assume for a second that it passes. Then by what date in anticipation will the town own?
December 31st.
Okay, so
We're-
the dead date is
It is.
December.
I do think there's
The
some
final
wiggle
sig-
room
yeah,
for a
yeah.
closing.
Okay, the closing.
But I do believe that, I mean, all of this needs to be worked out prior to December 31st.
Yeah, right now,
you have-
the
there's
we
a-
own it date is January 1st of 18.
So which means people will be drinking Milford water, perhaps, on January 1st.
Yes, possibly.
Good.
And again, that's not going to be a magical transformation on January 1st, but it's going to be a start. And I really think that this is why I talked about, getting down to the philosophy of this whole purchase, because I believe that's what it's going to come down to at town meeting. It's going to come down to the fact that do a majority of town meeting members, hopefully hearing from their residents, believe that the town of Milford should own and operate and be responsible for their own water supply. Because what I said at the last public meeting in my closing remarks was, this isn't necessarily about the right now. It is, because we're the generation that's going to be responsible for purchasing it and making the needed changes over the next 10 years. However, when that note is paid for, this is about leaving our children and our grandchildren their water supply.
Right. And
And-
control of that water
yes.
supply. their own-
Because, and I'll hazard the guess that if the town doesn't buy it, you've done the due diligence that any other buyer could see as public record.
Yes.
And so the fear that I have in the back of my head is, if the town doesn't buy it, there's only one large private company around buying water. So I'll lay it on the table. I haven't talked to them, so I don't know if this is true or not, but I would speculate that Aquarian Water would come in, and since the assets are valued at more than the 63 million purchase price, they could get it for 63 million and get a deal. Then it's really held in private company
Absolutely.
forever.
And you never have access to it again.
Nope, this is a one-shot deal, and believe me,
Because Eversource bought Aquarian.
we have a very conservative board of selectmen.
Oh, really?
And the three of you are all in
and-
favor of the purchase.
Yes, and I'll tell you that every dollar that we have spent, and it's been a lot of dollars, has been scrutinized. And we've had internal dialogues, obviously, at these executive sessions. I'm not quoting anybody, but I mean, we have been very tough. We didn't take it lightly, asking for these hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I mean, if you count the 400,000 appropriated at May's annual town meeting, you're up in the 600,000 range on
Plus, yep.
consulting money
Yeah.
to make sure this is the right thing to do.
But as long
However,
as you spend it up front to get a good,
but
understanding.
what is that, 1% of the purchase price?
Well, I
No,
mean,
and that's it. We're talking about a $63 million purchase price. And ever since that 2009 boil water issue, I mean, I'm not saying anything that the Milford Water Company doesn't know and everyone feels like. There is a lack of trust and lack of confidence. So
Right.
we had to do all of this due diligence.
But what do you say to somebody who says, well, you're just buying a problem with the pipes in the ground? But won't the people be paying for that through water rates, whether the Milford Water Company stays the same ownership or the town buys
And
it?
that's it. And I like that because that's how even when all the attorneys and the consultants and the financial, these people from Lincoln Group are super impressive. They're all CEO, CFO level folks, but we need to just have regular conversations with folks. And I don't say that about me speaking outward to the community. I mean, even when they are speaking to me in executive session. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an expert in this. I've learned more than I ever thought imaginable. But we, whether it's the Board of Selectmen and everyone watching your show and town meeting, we all have to understand just the simple concepts of all this before we even want to break down into all the executive summaries and all the financials that I mean, it's a 3-foot pile of paperwork to go through. People are busy. They have busy lives. They have families. They're taking care of relatives. At this town meeting, they need we need to do what we can to present the best clear picture, the honest truth, and then for them to take a vote.
and for people to be able to understand the issues and have
Okay.
clear answers to the questions they ask.
Yep.
Okay, the other biggest comment I hear in addition to, you buying this problem is you're spending $63 million of tax dollars. You're not.
Right.
You're spending $63 million of future water bills.
Right.
So that if I have a well, I'm not paying for this.
Exactly.
Number one. And the other thing that's very important for people to understand is that a lot of people don't understand what an enterprise system is. So
Well, they do
that's-
because of the sewer system here.
Well, okay, but there's still a lot of people that don't understand what that means. And that's going to be an issue that sits on the table. Okay, we buy it, now how do we support it? And the answer to that question is, the town doesn't have to support it.
No.
We're going to
The
seed,
$63 million is being paid back
we're going to
through people's water bills,
We're going to
period.
seed the enterprise system, and then the enterprise system is going to support this going forward. And that's a question, people need to understand that.
And I think that's exactly why we're having the
Right,
follow-up
right,
conversation
right.
about the rate hikes and honestly saying, wait a minute, yeah, can we buy it and do 2.5% rate hikes every year? I guess you could, but we need to do capital improvements that have not been done. Because the one thing the Board of Selectmen has made a commitment to is we aren't going to buy it and then run it how it is run now.
Right, you have to.
We won't do
improve it.
that.
Right, you have to.
Oh, you're going to
improve it.
fix everything.
We're going to
that needs
fix everything, run it the way it's supposed to, hopefully give excellent
Well-
customer service, and go there, and in the end, have control of the water.
Well-
Far after I'm off the board, and,
I think you mentioned the sewer board. Let's give the sewer department as a whole credit, because most people don't realize the wastewater treatment plant is already beyond its lifespan. But you haven't seen
Certainly
anybody
is.
say, I need 60 million for a new one. What they've done is, through the rate structure,
made their capital improvements.
they've replaced almost these massive $200,000 screw pumps.
Yep.
Now they're doing what are called the biologic collectors
Yep.
Yes.
through the rates. And they've basically renewed that plant piece by piece, year by year,
Brand new.
to the point where it will be eventually functioning. Well, then it'll be time to replace something else. But the only thing they borrowed for was to build this sludge facility, which basically is also going to pay for itself by saving the cost of disposal of the solid waste from the plant through the rate structure. So they haven't gone to taxpayers once
Well, the
and
good-
said,
The good news is one of the questions that's always been on the table after the water problem is the quality of water is just not there. And you guys, the town, will now own that and will move forward because in a method where the guy who's making the promises is going to be held accountable. You can be held accountable.
Yeah.
The current owner isn't necessarily.
So, you know, color might be a problem, and they don't want to spend the money to correct the color problem.
Yeah.
We know it passes muster in terms of drinkability because the state and federal government,
Test.
Great, and that's all
Are
wonderful,
testing
but
it.
no one's going to drink water the color of one of these chairs. You
and
know?
that's what it looked like.
And you know what? I think in some areas of town they're having the brown water. Where I am, it's clear. It smells like pool water.
Yeah.
Never did growing up. So you know.
What
and
happened?
again, I remember back in 2009, my son was a year old. A lot of birth defects, compromised immune system. And my wife opens up a letter, Lisa opens up a letter from the Milford Water Company saying, oh, da, 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 if you're elderly, if you're young, don't bathe your children with immune system, da, da, da. Well, after that, I'm down at Benny Pinto's and I dropped $2,000 putting a whole house filter on that I change the filters every 3 months and 6 months each. But you know what? We had the ability to do that.
Some people don't.
Some people don't have the ability to go and put a $2,000 system. I mean, granted, we did that and sacrificed some other improvements, but some people who don't have that at all, they turn on the faucet. I want people to turn on their faucet in Milford and be confident
They should
that
be
they'd be able to
do
bathe
that.
in it, drink out of the garden hose like we did.
Yeah, they should be able to do that. There's a right of expectation.
And right now, that confidence, let's face it, isn't there.
It isn't there.
For some people it is, but for the majority of people, it's not.
Now,
Exactly.
I also don't believe it. I don't believe it's the people that are involved at the local facility here in town. I don't think that's where the issue is. I think the issue is at a corporate level.
Yep.
For the water company.
Yep.
And
Well, the
that's-
corporate level is local. I think you mean the shareholders.
Perhaps. Yeah, I think.
There-
Yeah, that's.
No,
You
because there's
know,
a
but
lot
see,
of good
Al,
people that
Al,
work down there.
But Al, you're feeding the myth that a company owns the Milford Water Company. No, the same people who are at RH White are the majority, the White family that owns RH White.
Okay.
Separately are the majority stockholders of the Milford Water Company, but the RH White does not own, as a company, does not own the Milford Water Company. They're interlocking
Right, okay.
through the same people.
Right. Okay.
So the corporate ownership is local, and I think people keep mixing the two up because the company tends to use, you know,
Yeah.
all the different parts of RH White to help it out. We've got about a minute left, Will. What do you want to tell people about the purchase?
Well, I think just to reiterate, I totally understand and respect. It's a huge purchase. I expect there to be a healthy debate at town meeting. I do hope that folks do want to step up and take on the challenge to purchase the water company. I think it's the right thing to do financially. I think it's the right thing to do philosophically. And I think it's the right thing to do for future generations.
And if not now, that's it.
I
There's
can't
not another
see
chance.
I can't see us having another option for doing this. And if I was still a town meeting member 10 years from now, I'm not sure we would want to give all the money because you'd have to do a whole bunch of this due diligence all over again because you'd have to update it, what has been done or not been done over the next 10 years. So I hope people hear us out, and I hope people contact their town meeting members with you know, what they feel that they should do.
Okay, Will, thanks for coming in and updating
Thank
this
you.
on
Thank you,
this.
gentlemen, for having me again.
And we'll be devoting the show after this also to some of the finances of it. We hope to invite Zach and Zach Taylor and Chris Pilla on to explain
Oh, great.
the finances. Hopefully they'll come. And
They will.
yeah, that's why I'm staying with you here. And
good.
we'll do more of that. But again, Will,
Will,
thanks for coming.
Thank you.